All right. Hey, you guys. This your girl, Toya. Welcome to the Toya Moment podcast. Today on the Toya Moment podcast, we're stepping into the courtroom with Justin Capek, a fearless young trial attorney out of Philly, making big waves in state and federal court, from defending clients on serious charges to standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Justin's built a rep for being relentless, accessible, and ready to go toe-to-toe with the justice system, especially in Philly. So, without further ado, give me some little clap it up, and snap it up for my guest, Justin. Mr. Capek, right?
Good afternoon. Justin's fine.
Justin's good today?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, Justin, before we start anything, I know you go to Penn State. I went to Penn State.
Graduated the same year.
Graduated the same year.
Yep.
We both young. We're
Right.
still young forever. So I'm about to test your Penn Stateness, okay? You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. You didn't go to Penn State, but your daughter did. So we going to test her still. We are...
Penn State.
There, okay. He's officially a Penn Stater like myself. Okay. So Justin, before we get into any court talk, I need to know, tell me about Justin outside of the suits. Like, outside of the courtroom, outside of the suits. What does Justin like to do?
So outside of going to court, I guess what I do in my free time, I'm a pretty avid runner. So I like to do train for marathons.
Okay.
So I've run 2 full marathons this year. I've run about a dozen half marathons in the past 2 or 3 years. So I'm training right now for a marathon in Wyoming that I'm going to do next month. And then I'm going to do my first ultra marathon next year, which is 51.4 miles.
Oh, wow.
So that's one of the things I like to do. Outside of running, I do a little bit of boxing training. I'm not ready for like a professional fight or an amateur fight yet, but I train with my my coach, David Rivera. He's great. We train in North Philly, usually the K&A boxing gym right off F in Kensington. And otherwise, pretty much just weight train and physical training is what I do outside of, really the stuff that I do in court or stuff at the office. So I'm pretty workaholic for the most part. So weight training and doing a lot of physical training is what I do in my off time.
Oh, that's pretty dope. So you said you box. I'm a boxing fan. Are you a boxing fan?
I'm a boxing fan, yes.
So you know what I'm about to ask you.
Who's my favorite fighter?
Who's your favorite fighter? But we got a big fight coming up. We got the Crawford fight. Who you got?
I got Bud.
All right, okay, so we really about to have a good interview.
Yeah, I like Bud. I
love Bud.
I do too. I think I do like Canelo too, but I do like Bud.
So why you say Bud? Let me make sure. Why you say Bud and not Canelo?
I don't know. I like the underdog. That's part of my mentality. Like, I'd rather fight for the underdog than just rubber stamp Canelo, who's an amazing fighter anyway and deserves his accolades. But I gotta go for Bud.
All right, I'm going for Bud too. I'm definitely going for Bud.
My favorite fighter is Isak Cruz.
Okay. So you're a real boxing fan.
Yes.
You're a real boxing fan. All right, so I do know that you got, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this right. You did get award for the Pennsylvania Super Lawyer.
So
congratulations.
Anytime, I appreciate it. Top 40 under 40 as well.
Yes. Yes. So that feels good. How did that feel?
It's a good award to get. I mean, it's something that you work very hard for, and it's nice to get the recognition for working hard and putting the time in and effort in to do it.
Okay. So we talked about some cases before the camera actually came on, but do you remember your first big case where it opened the door for you? And you was like, I arrived.
That's kind of a loaded question. I guess it would say, it depends on what you would count as a big case. I guess my first jury trial that I ever did, I did when I was about 6 months in.
Wow.
So that was an eye-opening experience because doing a jury trial is kind of the pinnacle of being a trial lawyer, because that's what you see on TV, that's what you see, on YouTube, and all the stuff that's, memorialized in the media is picking a jury, arguing to 12 people and about your case. So that was the first time that I was like, wow, I've arrived. This is what I've gone to school for. This is what I've trained for. This is like the biggest stage in being a lawyer, is trying a jury case. So that was the first really big experience that I had for me, where I felt like, okay, now this is really where I'm at in my career, where I'm, trying a jury trial. It's a big milestone to do.
Were you nervous?
I was totally nervous, yeah. It was a lot of prep. I rehearsed a lot of things. I think I over-rehearsed a lot of stuff, but it was a good case to try because the client was overwhelmingly guilty, but but he wanted his day in court, which is his right.
Yes.
And we had to be really creative, and we tried our best, but it allowed me to go through it and try some new strategies and things that maybe were a little more unorthodox, and be a little more creative and be able to argue to a jury and not feel quite so bad about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Because the guy, was ultimately, was guilty at the end of the day. So
okay, so that kind of leads me to my next question. I know being a defense attorney, right? I'm not sure if you heard this, but a lot of times people are like, oh, you're defending the bad guy. What do you say to that when people say you're defending the bad guy and the prosecutor is holding like the good guys up, or
I mean, I think that that's a very like surface level take. I mean, people would say you're just defending the bad guy, don't understand, the awesome powers of the government and the immense burden that they have to convict somebody. And they don't understand like the gravamen and the magnitude of taking someone's liberty and saying your life, as it previously was, is no longer available. You're going to be incarcerated for a significant period of time, or you're going to now have a conviction. So I wouldn't say that it's fighting for the bad guy. It's keeping the government in check, because it is such a high burden, and it is an important burden in a civilized and advanced criminal justice system. And I would argue that we have the most advanced and really expansive criminal justice system of any nation. No nation affords people due process the way that we afford people due process. So it really is important for me to keep, that burden alive and keep it honest, because, there's a philosophy of, it's better that one guilty person go free than 1,000 innocent people get convicted.
Yes.
And that's true. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And that's part of the burden of the justice system. And being a defense lawyer is keeping that burden in check and making sure that the government's just not rubber stamping someone's guilt without really earning it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell other people is that's such a surface level take that you got to really dig deeper to really understand what it is about being a defense lawyer that is so important to the justice system as a whole. And it's not just, oh, I'm just defending the bad guy in some sort of, kind of cartoonish and media way where you're just like this bad guy and you're doing it because you kind of co-sign what they did and stuff like that. It's not like that at all.
Yeah. And I definitely agree. I do think that some people deserve to be, some people not everyone who's on trial or who goes to court is guilty. I do know family members of my own who actually got caught up in things that they really weren't guilty for or really didn't do and was framed. So I definitely do agree to what you're saying, letting one guilty one go. To say it again, I'm sorry.
So it's better for one guilty person to go free than 1,000 innocent people to be incarcerated for stuff that they didn't do.
Yes. And
it happens. I mean, I've seen it all. Like I've won homicides that it was overwhelmingly guilty, like evidence of guilt, and I won. I pulled it out, pulled it off. There's cases that I've lost where the person didn't deserve to lose, but it happens, and you have to just be dynamic and adaptable and do the best you can under all the circumstances. And then there's the third scenario where you're basically, as a defense lawyer, it's so important, where you're working on what's the right penalty. Like you said, family members that got caught up in something or something that's kind of an aberration or not consistent with someone's character, especially someone who's charged with an offense and they have no prior record. And if they are in fact guilty, or there's some way to maneuver around to get them a lesser sentence or to get an amended charge or to get them some sort of program that allows them to circumvent that conviction, it's incredibly important. It's a huge part of my job. I would say a lot of what my job is mitigation and working on trying to find a creative solution for this person that either avoids them having jail time, avoids them having a significant criminal record, or avoids a conviction altogether. Yeah. And those three goals can be accomplished without necessarily going to trial. So that's a big part of my job that I think is an important aspect of, plea bargaining and being a really strong advocate for your clients in a way that's not just inherent within being a trial advocate.
Yeah. So do you find yourself getting attached to some of your cases?
I wouldn't say attached in the sense of like I take too much of a personal interest. Like I give it, 110% for every case, but I work as hard as I can and I put my, heart and soul into every case. But, once it's done, it's time to move on. Like it's next case and you got to go on. But, a lot of my clients, like I still keep in touch with them, and you establish a relationship with them.
Yeah. You become like family, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially with, the one client that I had, I beat a homicide that he didn't do. He sat in jail for 2 years and,
wow.
We ultimately prevailed at the end of the day. And, he keeps in touch with me, lets me know what he's up to. And, so I wouldn't say get attached, but you keep those relationships, especially when you see that person every week in the jail and you go through every piece of discovery and trying to figure out what's the way we can win this case. And you finally bring it to its fruition and then it's over with. There's no more seeing them to jail. There's no more questions to ask. There's no more arguments to be made. So attachment in that sense, no. I think it's important as a defense lawyer you don't get attached. I think you have to remain somewhat stoic and emotionally neutral, because you can't do your best work if you're too invested in it. You have to be, you have to do it from a standpoint of being a professional and executing a task to the best of your ability and without being clouded by, either emotional attachment or otherwise.
All right, so are you from Philly?
Yes.
Okay, what part of Philly are you from?
So I grew up in like sort of South Center City, right off of South Street. So
it's like would you say
like Queen Village?
Okay, Queen Village. Okay.
So that's where I grew. Like my parents were divorced, so I spent most of my time like there with my dad, and then my mom lived in like right across the bridge in Jersey. So I would split the week between them two. But
so you got some Jersey and some Philly.
Some Jersey, yeah. But I claim myself as being Philadelphia because that's where I lived before my parents got separated.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up most of my life.
All right, so Philly right now. Philly is like a really tough city, maybe one of the toughest cities in America right now. And in Philly, they have this thing like where like the street law. How do you feel like that impacts you as being a lawyer, especially representing clients in Philadelphia justice system?
I think for the younger kids that I've represented, and I say kids because I've represented a lot of kids, I've seen an uptick in the past 3 years of like 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are getting into very significant crimes, shootings, homicides, attempted murders, significant carjackings, and things of that nature. And I think that culturally, from what I've seen, it seems like a lot of, there's kind of a common denominator with a lot of the background with this. The kids don't really go to school. They don't have a very stable home life. They either they come from a single parent household, or they've experienced some trauma in their life. Most of the time I've seen with a lot of these kids that I've represented is, one, they're all about this, like, I need to have like a social score. Yeah. And I've heard like one of my clients explain this to me where, you doing like drills or shooting people or having reputation in the streets, you get like you have like a score. So instead of the things that we thought when we were 16 and 17 as being popular, like having the cool clothes, like
the nice car,
like going to a good school, having a cool birthday party, are not the things that are normalized now. The things that are normalized now are, how tough are you in the streets? What's your reputation like? What are you willing to do? And it's degrading our youth in a lot of ways. And it's creating, the youth that are getting brought up in that culture are becoming adults that are also becoming degraded, desensitized to violence, not having the same sense of community that I feel like I had growing up in school with my friends, and feeling very distrusting of other people, feeling like they need to hurt each other. And it's also, I think too, is social media is a huge contribution.
That's what I was about to ask you in regards to like the social media. Okay, so I'm gonna move away from these questions. We're gonna just talk. I do believe that social media plays a major role in it. Huge part. And I also believe that the music plays a major role in it. Like right now, we have this drill music, right? And in the drill music, they're talking about how to go on drills, how to hurt people, and they're pretty much just putting it out there. Like, I've never seen this in my life. You and I are around the same age. You're just saying what you did, like flat out. Like, I got the score. They like taking score. And you look to these kids and you're like, you guys are babies.
Right.
You're babies. Most of them maybe never even seen 10th grade yet.
Yeah. And a lot of these kids too have good families. Like they have I've had kids that come from good families, but we grew up in the era of like, remember when we had like the Mac computer that had like, it was all ingrained in one, when we didn't come up with social media. Like social media didn't pop off.
Like MySpace kinda. The MySpace era, but you had to actually be on a computer to get on the MySpace era.
But with the just overwhelming access now, where you can connect with people, you can post videos of people, you can like make comments on, and the amount of beef, like the accessibility to beef now is crazy. Yeah. And I remember, when you had beef, like in high school, you just like went and brought your brother and went and
you fought it. You fought it out, right?
But now with the accessibility of guns and these ghost guns and how kids are getting them, we're in a really difficult part of the city where a lot of kids, and you're seeing this in a lot of other cities too, like Chicago.
Yes.
That are
Mississippi, Jackson,
right? And you're seeing this horrible, uptick in violence where children are dying. And for no reason whatsoever. And it's tremendously sad. And I don't really know what the real solution is. But I think social media, like you said, I think it plays a huge part of it. I think it's a huge instigator to everything that's going on.
And some of these babies, I feel like, because I'm calling them babies because they are babies. Some of these babies, I don't even think they know why they have beef, to be quite frankly honest. I'm pretty sure if you sat down, you might have sat down with some of your clients and said, let's get to the root of this issue. They probably don't even know what is the root of the issue. Is it a block that you don't own? It like it's beef for no reason. You know what I mean?
It's really like trivial stuff that I've seen too. It's like someone said a comment or insulted me or insulted someone that was killed or that I knew that I was friends with, and they just go back and forth. And they they have this, a lot of times, and we've seen this in literature too. Like when I've done like my research into this is, people who come from very impoverished backgrounds or very difficult childhoods or broken families, they long for a sense of community that they don't find within the nucleus of their home. Yeah. They don't find it in school. So they find it in other ways. So they find a sense of belonging in something that is inherently destructive, like a gang that does something criminal or that it has a proclivity for violence. So they latch on to that because they haven't had the resources growing up that other people were privileged to have or that had in a stable family home. And then that's all they know. And then they have a deep sense of loyalty to that group of people. And that loyalty, runs very deep, and it often, translates into really horrible results as we're seeing right now.
And I'm just going to jump out the window and say this, right? I do think that we talked about like the music having something to do with this, right?
Right.
I believe that the records execs that sit at the top have to take blame in some of this violence that's happening as well. And I say that because we hear kids go online, they go on the YouTubes. They have beef and they have the ops and everything. But also a lot of them say, oh, Lil Durk made it, Chief Keef made it, and they made it based off beef, getting on YouTube, blowing up, getting millions of dollars in their pocket. I think a part of it is also, let me start a rap career, blasting my ops because that's going to get me quick attention, which is going to get me quick money and quick notice from someone, and hopefully someone comes sign me.
Well, they glorify. I mean, it's glorified.
Yeah,
I mean, it's heavily glorified. But when one of the things you have to realize too is, how many real like people that came from the trenches and like have their story and they've told it through music. How many of them really made it? Like how many can you really can you count on 10?
But they're not going to think about that,
right? But and you think about it, like if 10 people, like Lil Durk, Meek Mill, so on and so forth, if they made it and now they're multimillionaires and they have everything, the cars, the clothes, women, the jewelry. Think about how many people are in the city. Yeah. Like there's such an anomaly. It's such an anomaly where things aligned for them right at that time and they made it. And, they're trying to imitate that.
Yes.
And, the entertainment industry loves that stuff because it's entertaining because
it makes money.
It makes money and they're the target demographic. And I do agree that they have some blame. And I think that, they glorify it and they feel like if they idolize people that have done really bad things or because they feel like it's a lifestyle that they want to have. And that's like, it kind of goes back to the social score where, it's, I'm going to value my worth as a human being based on, how much beef I have, like how feared I am in the streets. Do I have a nice car? How much money can I make? Can I show it off with having a watch? Can I show it off with having a chain? And it really doesn't go any further than that. Yeah. And that's what it kind of becomes this myopic mindset where you can only see so far in front. And these kids, you ask them, like, what do you want to do when you grow up?
You can't think that far.
And they can't. What kind of career do you want to have? Do you want to have children? Where do you want to live? Like, what's your 10-year plan? And they don't have it. And either because they're not learning it in school, they're not being taught it in school. And, you as a teacher know, like, the importance of that early education and feeling like it's important and that you're encouraged to do those things. And if you're not backed up at home, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of scary. Like when a child is about, we're going to just say 12 years old, they can't see past what's in front of them, the streets. They can't see past the gang life. They can't see past like their neighborhoods. That's kind of scary. So I do think that children need to be exposed to more to see what's out here, to see really what they want. But you mentioned like the money. I personally don't think it's the money anymore that they want the attention for, because let's be honest, most of them are gang worn and they're not making money.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's the clout.
It's the clout. Yeah. That's the worst drug of it all. Like it's the clout. So I definitely do think they're doing it for Instagram clout at this point. So what is the youngest defendant that you ever defended?
I want to say like 12 or 13. Yeah. On a homicide too.
In Philadelphia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a baby.
Yeah, it was a baby. And he had a really, really tough, and they charged him as an adult too.
What age do they start charging as an adult now?
They can charge you as an adult pretty much, like, I mean, realistically, like 12 or 13.
Okay.
But they charged him as an adult. And we ended up working it out, but it was a bad case. I mean, he, had admitted guilt to, killing a homeless man with a brick. And it was like a very, outrage. It was probably 6 years ago, but there was so much community outrage, and, they were, the community just saw him as like a monster. They saw him like as this pariah and this like that need to be in jail for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And then we had him evaluated, and the kid was, mother was addicted to crack during her pregnancy. He was addicted to crack as a child, basically coming out right out.
Yeah, yeah.
He had the reading ability of like a third grader. He had the comprehension skills of a third grader, and he just was, he was completely, so far back in life, and he had no ability to like really assess risk and look past, like you said, what kind of behaviors he was doing. So he ended up working out, but it was, it was traumatic for him to be locked up in an adult jail.
Do you feel like that like opened his eyes to see it's real out here?
I don't know. I mean, it's been so long. I don't know where he is or where he's at this point, but it was really sad to see, read the report of the doctor that we had hired to do a background, and just to see that this kid was just, from the rip was just subjected to, the second he came into this world was at a disadvantage, and was at a patent disadvantage to be able to function normally in society. And no one really took care of him. No one looked after him and tried to do the right thing to fix him and get him the help that he deserved. So
I think this is like really good that Ken jumped in. Not good for the baby.
Ken's going to ask me a good question.
Ken jumping in.
Yeah, so I got a question real quick. I just had to get this in. I worked with youth in the schools before, and where we had to make arrests on students, and to see the process. And what I've learned a lot of times, that the parents, they wasn't aware. They wasn't aware of. So do you find that a lot of times with young children, kids, that their parents had no idea that they was even close to crime? Because a lot of this stuff don't even happen from drugs. So they like, well, you know what I'm saying? They don't come from drugs. And it's probably the first time they ever encounter with a gun. Sometimes it comes from relationships. And I've seen a lot of crime came from young relationships and arguing over women at 14 years old. And it starts from a woman, a girl, and then it becomes a gang war between two different neighborhoods because they ops because of an argument
over a girl.
And younger, they're trying to make their way and make their first impression on, okay, this is the time I got to make my mark at that high school, that ninth grade.
Yep.
I got to make my mark, and I got to show them that I belong in this neighborhood. And so once you become an op, you may not even want to be that op, but you become part of that culture. You become part of the community of this is where I'm from. And it's like, how do we break that this is where I'm from thing? Because it seemed like every year where I'm from gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Right. Before it used to be like, I'm from Philly. Then it was I'm from South Philly. Now it's from I'm from 18th Street. You from 17th Street. Well, we live down the street from each other. We're gonna be ops. You on the 17th. We're gonna always see each other. Right. So the ops get closer and closer to the neighborhood, and they don't even have anything to do with drugs. And most people out here thinking that the crime, the shootings come from drugs, but a lot of times they come from a bunch of retaliation and stuff like that.
I mean, it comes from a lot of, like, frankly, very silly shit.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I think that, to answer your original question, I think with regard to how do the parents know or do they don't know, what kind of, I don't want to say responsibility, but what kind of imparted knowledge should they have? And I think that it's twofold, at least the way I've seen it. In the first part, it's either they really don't know, or they can't know because, mom is a single parent. She has to work 2 jobs and she's doing her best. But her priority is, I have to provide for my children. I have to provide for my babies. I have to work all the time. And she simply can't hold her oldest son's hand all the time or go through his phone and see and know what he's doing at all hours of the day. And, that's just the reality of it. And that's not her fault. And, I know that a lot of times they think, oh, I wish I could do better. I wish I could be around for my kids. But the second one is either, and I've seen this too, is they either don't care or they're a product of that same upbringing, and it's just normalized. And they just say, well, it kind of is what it is, and you know, they make a lot of excuses for their children. I've seen that a lot too, where you know it's not their fault, or they didn't start it, or you know this cop didn't have any right to arrest my son, or they didn't have enough warrant. And again, that all may be true to some degree, but it's never, you know, that on that stream of consequence, you don't really see like a lot of accountability. Whereas in the first one, where you have the mom that's working really hard and she just simply can't hold her child's hand all the time, you do see a lot of accountability, and you see a lot of guilt. Like I've seen a lot of guilt where parents say, you know, if only I'd been there more, if I had been more involved with my child, maybe I could have prevented this.
Yeah.
And of course you couldn't, because you can't hold your 14-year-old or 15-year-old. And Ken, it's like you said, like they don't know what they're getting into outside of it, and they don't understand. You know, they're socially disconnected and generationally disconnected from what the youth are doing today, and what they find, you know, what their social constructs are and what they believe is important to them, so on and so forth. So it's a very difficult and dynamic problem that I don't really foresee a big, like a one-shot solution that we can fix.
And as I was listening to you speak, I hear you mention the mom and not the dad. Do you see in a lot of your cases, it's a one-parent household and the parent is the mom?
Yes, a lot of times.
Okay.
I would say overwhelmingly, in most cases I have with people that are between 15 and 21 grew up in a single parent household.
And the single parent is mom.
Single parent with a mom, yeah. And didn't have a dad that was around. There's a lot of people that have good stepfathers that are around, but you know, and there's research that shows, and I've articulated this in a lot of sentencing memos and otherwise, that step parent can fill the role of the father, and it does have a good parental backing. But all the research shows that, you know, when you have a two-parent household, you're less likely to commit crime. You're less likely to engage in socially risky behaviors, because you have both parties that are kind of nurturing your personality. Yeah. But yeah, you see a lot of single parents. You know, it's a big root cause, and it's a derivative issue of you know, and predictor of crime.
And I also
so
go ahead, Ken.
real quick, I'm sorry, Toya,
No, you're
but
fine.
so like what's your suggestion? Okay, a lot of times this first time somebody got in trouble before, a parent never had to deal with going down to the police station, and it's a serious matter, right? Child never been in juvenile, but they up for murder, they up for robbery, first time ever, never even probably got suspended from school, right? Like I always tell my son, you call me first. Before anything, you call me first. If you done something wrong, you call me first. And it's like, I think, do you find like they call you too late in the game? Do you think, you know, it's like when the parent, what's your how can I say, like a lot of parents don't know what to do. They looking for the system to tell them what to do next.
Right,
okay?
and that can be a disaster.
Right, so it's like we're gonna give you information out here at the end of the It's like, hey, call me immediately. Like not tomorrow, not on Monday. You know what I'm saying? Like immediately.
But you've established that trust, though. See, that's the point. Is you've understand the value of that trust. If you are in trouble, if you do something wrong, I don't care how bad it is, call me first. You know, and a lot of parents don't have that conversation with their children. And I tell people the same thing all the time, and I put this out before, is, you know, the police, you know, have a very important role in our society. They do what they can to enforce crime and laws, but they are not there to help you if you are accused. They're not there to help you. And they are, I tell people all the time, never, ever, ever talk to the police without an attorney present.
Yes.
And it's the same thing like for a child too, because they're not allowed to question your child without a parent there. But I tell them all the time, do not give a statement, period. Because the second that you make an admission, they're going to use that. They're allowed to use that against you, and they will use it against you. And, you know, police are allowed to, you know, law enforcement are allowed to lie to you when they interrogate you.
Oh, I never knew that.
They're allowed to lie. Yeah. If they give you Miranda warnings, and then they're allowed to lie to you. They're allowed to say, and you see it in these interrogations, where they'll pump fake and say, we got your DNA all over the weapon, because they want to get them to make an
But I didn't know they were allowed. I just thought that was something that they did.
They're allowed to. I mean, it's not illegal for them to, it's not constitutionally impermissible for them to lie. If they give you Miranda rights, they can say anything to elicit a confession, you know, instead of like, you know, outright coercion. But They're allowed to, and they're not going to exercise sympathy no matter how much they say they will. That's when they lie, where they say, we're going to help you. We'll recommend a light sentence to the judge. It's all bullshit. They can't, they have no say over what a judge can do. I mean, it's all the prosecutor's, really discretion and your lawyer's discretion. So I tell people, if you are in a situation where you get into trouble and you do something wrong, you should first call someone close to you. And if you are arrested and you don't have the ability to do that, keep your mouth shut. Don't give any statement. Tell them you want to exercise your right to remain silent. You want a lawyer, and then your family will meet with a lawyer. But the typical way that I've had it, I'd say most of it is people get arrested, they get locked up, they call me, either family members or the person in general if they've already bailed out. But if they're in, the family will come meet with me. We'll talk. I'll go meet them at the jail, and then we'll go from there. But all the time, the most important thing you can do is invoke your right to silence and invoke your right to an attorney when you get arrested, because if you're going to get arrested, that's a foregone conclusion. There's nothing that you are going to say ever.
Okay.
If you implicate somebody else, if you say it wasn't me, it's not going to get you out of jail. Once they've made the decision to arrest you, it's a foregone conclusion, and you're better off protecting yourself against a system that's not designed to help you at that level. So that's what I would tell people. But, and to go off your point, Ken, incredibly important to establish trust with your child.
Yeah.
If you have a child, call me before you do anything. It doesn't matter how bad it is. I'm not going to get mad at you. I would rather you call me than call your friend or call your cousin, or let a police officer say, hey, you should call your mom and tell her, call me first. So I would say that's the most important thing that a parent can do, especially if you have an at-risk youth, is to build the trust and say, listen, no matter what happens, no matter what, call me first, and we'll figure it out from there.
I think just taking one step back can kind of bring in what you said, and just finishing off where you said the at-risk child. I think a lot of times parents, not saying all parents, right? But I think some parents pretend they don't know what's going on. As a teacher, many times you might call a parent, hey, you might tell them about something their child did. They'll say, oh, my child never did this. My child never did that. And then you're like, okay, well, they're doing it now, and then parents act like.
Do you think that they're just being blissfully ignorant because they don't want to
Of course, because I think a lot of times parents think that when you tell them something that their child did, you're blaming them.
Right.
So I think in your line of work, I think sometimes when parents may, not all the time, may be like, oh, I didn't know, or I wasn't aware. It's because if you say you were aware, it might be you might think that others would say you're a bad parent. Because most parents don't want to say, well, I can't control my child. How do you say that out loud? Most people don't feel comfortable saying it out loud. So it's better to say, I didn't know. I didn't know my child was hanging with the wrong crowd. Oh, I didn't know my child teacher said they did steal something, even though it might have been just your child stole a pen from me. That means your child is capable of stealing. So if you're getting a phone call that your child stole a car, you can't say, well, I didn't know my child do these things. I think sometimes, in some cases, not all cases, in some cases, parents know a little more than they lead on.
Yeah. And I think that nowadays in society, accountability is hard, even though it's the right thing.
Yes.
100 times out of 100 times. It's hard. It's hard to admit that your child may have done something wrong, even if it's a mistake, but kids are going to be kids.
Yeah.
I did a lot of stupid shit when I was growing up.
I agree. I did too.
So, one of the reasons I got sent to military school, but at the end of the day, I know my parents took individual responsibility in some degree, but they also, your kids are going to be kids. But, if you're going to excuse your child's behavior and you let them walk all over you. And I think a lot of times too, is we're in this culture now where parents, especially younger parents, are not being parents. They're being friends with their kids.
And grandparents are not because when we were growing up, your grandparent was older, and grandma, it was a different type of grandparent generation. Now the grandparents hang out with the parents hang out with the children.
No,
I see it all the time.
I'm a grandparent. I'm a full grandparent.
You're a grandpa.
I'm a grandpa. I'm a pop.
But you understand, you see it some of these moms and dads are friends with their kids.
They are.
And they don't have the ability to have that. This is the way it's going to go. Kind of conversation.
Yes. And parents excuse, again, bringing just my teaching experience in it. There's times when you might tell a parent that your child hit another student, and the parent, they're not trying to get to the root of the problem. First thing they say, well, if he hit my child or she hit my child going to hit her back. You're teaching your child you're not teaching your child the right way. That there's rules in school. When you get out of school, there's laws that you must follow. So if a child is already in school, like, I don't have to follow these rules because my parents say, what do you think they're going to do when they're outside in the streets?
Right.
Then they're going to think the law doesn't apply to me.
And it just guts your ability to be an enforcer in your setting, because they're just going to say, you're not my mom, so and I can do what I want.
Yes. Yeah, you know what, Justin? Just listen. And Justin, I know you have to go, so I'm not going to keep you any longer, but I am enjoying this conversation because I think it was important to have you on just for your expertise, but also to talk to the youth. Because I think that if we frame it to them like, listen, if someone told you, we going to go outside, we going to shoot this person, we might get caught, and if we get caught, we might be facing life in prison, but we only 15, then that will probably change how they move outside.
I would say that I think the biggest thing that we need to do as a city that I think is not happening, that I think would be a big, tremendous way. Like when I go to the gym and I see these young guys that are boxing and they're very disciplined and they work hard and they train and they have a purpose and a goal. You know, that is something that we don't have anymore. I don't think that, like, I don't see a lot of after school programs that are catering to 15, 16, 17-year-old, kids that are saying like, hey, do you want to be, everyone, like tons of my clients want to get their CDL. They want to do towing. They want to do truck. They want to be a truck driver, or they want to do something that's entrepreneurial. Yeah. And they don't have like these workshops, and they don't teach these kids. And they like, that's, I think, what I really wish that the city would do. And I wish our, people in power would really allocate the money towards these good after school programs where after they leave your classroom, they can go and they can learn how to, hey, this is what you need to do to be a CDL. I run this, I have a trucking company. This is what the challenges that I face. This is how I have to do it. And this is the kind of discipline you need to have. And, the personal discipline aspect, I always think is one of the most important character traits for young men, is to have a strong level of personal discipline, because that will carry you throughout any trials, tribulations, or difficult things that you do, because you have the ability to exercise restraint and you have the ability to self-regulate in a meaningful fashion. And I tell people all the time, like, if you have the opportunity to serve in the military, go do it, because it really saved my life, and it created and set the foundation for a set of tools that I employ on a daily basis that have carried me through some of the most difficult things, and have shown me how to be able to challenge myself and do better, in all aspects of my life. But when you don't have those things, and you don't have those even just an after school program. Where you're saying, hey, you need to come in here, you need to like pay attention, you need to look at this notebook, or even after school, like combat training, where it's like, hey, we're going to do an after school boxing program. We're going to do an after school, UFC thing. Or if you want to do like anything that you can keep these kids occupied after school and put them on and keep them focused, you're going to do better. And, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. And I think that in terms of what we see as indicators and predictors of an increase in crime, from a defense lawyer perspective, I think really is the lack of personal discipline, self-regulation, the, just obsession with social media, and the ability to, constantly feel like that's where you get your self-validation. That's where you get your sense of self-worth, is through things that mean nothing on a screen and not in ways that are constructive, and in a way that's really moving you in the right direction to be your best self.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the sad part is, social media is not going anywhere. That's the sad part about it. But I do think as a community, we need to come together, because it's going to take a community to fix this change and make this change happen. So I hope that someone listening to this interview can share this with like a young person and say, sit down, listen to this, and they see you, because you're basically telling them like, don't go down this road, because it's not always easy. I might be the best attorney, but that doesn't mean it's going to always go in our favor.
It's not. And, the one thing I will say is, it's life is very difficult. Life is not easy. And you learn that growing up. I mean, even at us at, 33, 34, you grow up pretty quick, and life is not about, what's the next fun thing I can do. It's about making sacrifices. It's about having to endure some suffering, endure some challenge, because that's what really life is fulfilling about. Yeah. And even though, I went to school for 7 years, I served in the military, and I've done a lot to get to, I've made a lot of sacrifices to get up here, I would do it all over again, because those sacrifices are very fulfilling. And, I would encourage people to seek out that kind of chosen suffering and that dedication, because it is much more fulfilling, and it may be difficult and it may be a struggle, but the other end of it is a lot better than just seeking out things that are temporary, unfulfilling and don't lead you to where you want to go.
Yes.
Because if you only can think one step ahead, you're gonna trip and fall. And you have to have a long-term plan, because it will work out. And it's never too late. You don't have to have your life figured out by 18. You don't have to have your life figured out by 22. You don't have to have your life figured out by 30. But
yes.
At the end of the day, though, I liked how we kind of kept it as a theme with young people. But I would encourage young people to, find something you like and stick with it and have the discipline to do it, because jail sucks. It's not a fun place. I go there every week, and I hear the stories of people that just have so much regret. Like, I wish I would have done that. Like, I really fucked up. My kids need me. My mom needs me. And, one bad decision can completely, set the trajectory of your life off in a completely different direction. It doesn't just affect you. It affects your family, particularly if you have children. It affects your relationships. It affects your ability to make money. And if you go to jail for a significant period of time, when you come out, that reintegration is going to be the most difficult thing you're ever going to do. Because all you're going to know is jail life and jail culture, and then you're going to have to come out, and society's going to expect you to just be like magically reintegrate.
Yes.
And it's all bullshit. It's impossible to really do that. So making those kind of decisions early that are going to set you up for a future where you're not going to need someone like me to clean up a mess is going to be a lot more fruitful in the long run than trying to clean up a mess and work from a disadvantage.
Before I let you out of here, I always like to leave my audience with some type of resources. Do you have like a resource or know of a resource, like when someone comes from out of jail, that a program that can help them get a job, can help them get back in school? So we don't want to see them back in the system.
So one of the programs that I've used a lot is PowerCore. Is the good program that they have a contract with the courts where they help people. They pay you to go to the program. They help you. It's like a 4-phase program. You graduate, and then they help you get a job. And the DA's office also runs this program called Emerging Adult Initiative. I think it's called. It's EAI or EAU, and they set you up with jobs and ways to make employment or job resources
like that.
But I don't think there's enough of them. There's not enough of them. I'm working on something that I'm going to try to, pitch and launch myself at the end of the year that I want to do kind of holistically as a way to help a lot of these underprivileged youth and because it's important to me. It's the city I grew up in, and I want to help younger kids, especially from being someone who was a really bad kid myself and got myself into trouble.
You made bad decisions. You wasn't a bad kid.
I made a lot of bad decisions that ended me up at military school, and ultimately that was not fun, but also it changed my life. But people don't always have that advantage that I did.
Yeah.
And I really want to see more programs come out, but nothing like getting a first job. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're 14, 15, 16, nothing like a job will teach you to value your time and do what you have to do. But resource-wise, just there's no excuse not to have a job nowadays, especially there's so much access to doing what you love and being able to start anything that you want to do. If you want to start a business, if you want to pursue your dreams, but all those things are going to require discipline. Yes. They're going to require self-regulation. They're going to require commitment, and they're going to require sacrifice. And if you are unwilling to meet any of those aspects, you are most likely not going to be successful.
Justin, thank you again for coming to sit down and talk to us.
My pleasure.
This was a pleasure for me. I really enjoyed this conversation. So excited that you decided to come and sit down with myself on the Toya Moment podcast. And just because I know your work week is hectic, so I do know sometimes the weekend is like probably the only time you get to yourself. Yep. So for you to take your time out your day to come sit down with me, I truly appreciate it. And please, anything you need on my end to help with your program, please let me know.
Definitely.
I am so open and ready to join that team with you. So please don't hesitate. At this point, we're family.
I like it.
At this point, we're family. And hopefully I never have to sit across from you as your client. We're praying for that. But I definitely want to use you as one of my resources in case someone I know need to sit across from you as a client.
Sure.
So thank you again for everything you're doing. Thank you again for giving us those resources for those youth. And thank you again for just bringing your expertise to this show. We really appreciate it, and hopefully you don't be a stranger to the show.
Definitely not. I'd like to come back on again.
You gotta come back.
Hey, Justin, give us your info real quick, so we can post it so everybody watching this, we can continue to blast this information out.
So my direct line is 877 KPAC Law, which goes right to my cell phone. It's 877 KPAC LAW. You can find me on Instagram at _KPAC_. So it's an underscore before KPAC and an underscore after. Do most of my business on Instagram. You can also find me at defenselawyerphiladelphia.com. That goes directly to our firm website. I handle the majority of the criminal defense matters for our law firm, and we also do personal injury for car accidents or any sort of slip and falls like that as well.
I'll be needing you for those car accidents. Thank you again, Justin, for coming through. And you guys, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Toya Moment podcast. Bye.